The day before my rebirth in the apocalypse, instead of stockpiling food or planning a shelter, I rushed to the antique market and spent all my parents' inheritance on a ridiculously fake antique. To outsiders, I was crazy. But I knew better than anyone that what I bought wasn't the antique itself, but the ancient coin hidden inside. That thing was worthless to others, but to me, it was the key to my future. It could awaken my family's ancestral bowl, transforming it from an earthenware bowl into a true treasure trove. Once I identified it, I could obtain an upgradable personal space that I in my past life. I woke up too late. The treasure trove was snatched away by a friend just as I got it, framed and killed. A truly humiliating experience I never truly swallowed. Now, standing on the balcony, a cold wind pulls my memories back to that disaster. This time, I need to pave the way 3 months in advance. 3 months later, a super solar flare erupts, and an electromagnetic pulse. The satellite crashed, paralyzing all electronic equipment. Then the sun entered a period of weakness, and global temperatures plummeted to below -50°C. A blizzard froze cities solid, killing almost all living things beneath the ice. Back inside, I opened the safe and found a worn-out, pitted bowl. It didn't look like a treasure at all. My father had specifically mentioned it in his will. Back then, I thought he was senile, until I activated it in my past life. I realized it was the treasure bowl. It required a specific key. I'd seen those ancient coins with special patterns. Past life, South City Antique Market. This time, no waiting. Every second counted. I grabbed my backpack, stuffed it into the treasure bowl door, and drove to the antique market. Early in the morning, the antique streets were bustling with activity. Hundreds of stalls lined up. A cacophony of voices. I clearly remember that in my past life, Zhou Heng and I found that ancient coin. Here, abundance. The ancient coins were a mix of real and fake, so I had to search each stallone by one for 2 whole hours. Couldn't find pattern. After asking around, I learned that the stalls on this street only set up in one place on weekend mornings, and the owners weren't fixed. My heart sank. If I missed today, I'd have to wait until next weekend. If I delayed, I'd lose a huge advantage. Seeing that it was almost closing time, I had to suppress my anxiety and continue searching. My fingers clattered as I turned the copper coins, my eyes not daring to relax for even a second. Suddenly, someone behind me called out like a ghost. My eyes turned cold, and a chill ran through me. I could never forget that voice. Zhou Heng, from junior high to high school, was my sworn brother. I had endured 8 years with him. He sold me out that I suppressed my murderous intent. Turned, pretended calm. Zhou Heng, what are you doing here? Zhou Heng walked over in a suit, a mocking look on his face that I was about to ask you something too. Even the academic genius is into antiques. He glanced at me, his eyes full of sourness. That's when I realized he'd been annoyed with me since this time in my past life. I casually replied, I heard it's lively here, so browsing this weekend. Just as I was chuckling, a commotion broke out nearby. Pushing through the crowd, I saw a young man in his 20s swearing and waving an old coin. That old man took it to be appraised yesterday. This is a modern artifact. You dare sell it to me for 100,000. You have to refund me today, or I'll call the police. The stall owner was an old man in a coarse cloth shirt, his hands trembling. It's a family tradition. I'm not lying. The onlookers watched with amusement. Zhou Heng leaned over and muttered, this kind of fuss happens every few days. According to the old rules, no refund once bought. I've been beaten up before. It's an unspoken rule in the antique world. If you buy a fake, you have to accept it. The moment I saw the ancient coin, my eyes narrowed. It was the one with the pattern that could open a treasure basin. It took a deep breath and stepped forward. My tone as casual as possible. Brother, can I take a look? I like collecting rare coins. If you're interested, I can sell it. As soon as I said that, people around me started talking. This kid isn't stupid, is he? Obviously fake, why buy? Young man called that Zhou Heng. Hearing that someone was willing to buy it, his eyes lit up. He immediately shoved the ancient coin into my hand. The coin was in very good condition, engraved with several strange symbols, like arcade coins. Others shake heads and leave that I ignored them. The treasure basin in my backpack was slightly warm that I hadn't made a mistake. This wasn't just an ancient coin to me, it was a lifesaver. I looked up and asked, how much? Zhou Heng looked me over and immediately said, 150,000. Take it. He yelled about returning. This immediately raised the price. Drawing eye rolls from those around me, I calmly replied, 50,000. Liu Hao's face darkened. He snatched back the coin. I'll take it. 100,000 already. You're dreaming. I didn't argue, turning to leave. I knew perfectly. He was greedy. The more I pretended not to care, the more afraid he'd be if I ran away, and he'd definitely chase after me. Sure enough, before I'd taken 2 steps, the stall owner stopped me. Young man, you want this kind of ancient coin? I have another one here, .80000 for you. Old man pulled out Baghdad and spread out another ancient coin. The pattern was exactly the same. He was overjoyed, but his face remained impassive. The treasure bowl also reacted. It turned out there was more than one of these coins. Okay, I'll take this one. He'll transfer the money on the spot. Liu Hao, watching from the side, felt increasingly uneasy. He gripped the ancient coin, his eyes unfocused. Could there really be a secret? I caught his expression and knew he was suspicious. I had to get the second one. The longer it dragged on, the more likely something bad would happen. After paying, I grabbed my bag and left. Zhou Heng, as expected, panicked, chased and stopped me. Handsome, you want this one too? After haggling, I got it 4.80000. Zhou Heng, standing nearby, was incredibly envious. I ignored him and turned to go. Home. Once home, I locked the door and drew the curtains tightly to avoid any noise. The activation of the treasure basin was too loud. I placed the slightly warm treasure basin on the table and inserted the first ancient coin. The next second, the treasure basin floated in the air, bursting with golden light. Layers of grime and patina peeled away, revealing its form. Immediately afterward, the ancient coin transformed into golden light and drilled into my forehead. A blur appeared before my eyes. An app panel popped up. The treasure basin had a storage space of 9 cubic meters. Upgrade required 1,000 points. The space was really here. I couldn't help but laugh. 0.9 cubic meters. Small storage. Except for living things could be used. Time stood still in the mine storage space. Crucially, it could be upgraded with gold and silver, piled gold to fill space. But in the 8th year of the apocalypse, all the gold was buried under the snow, and I hadn't even reached level 1. Looking at the second ancient coin, I wondered if it had any extra abilities. I placed the ancient coin on my forehead. My forehead warmed, and the coin disappeared. The panel briefly blurred, then cleared again. The content changed. Treasure basin storage space 9 cubic meters, item duplication, 3 upgrades, 10,000 points required. An extra item duplication appeared, and my eyes lit up. I went back to my bedroom and found the 5 gold bars my father had left me. I silently chanted duplicate, and a golden light flashed. With a clang, 5 identical gold bars appeared on the ground, perfectly replicated in size, weight, and texture. I glanced at the panel again. The duplication count changed from 3 to 2. This is an unlimited. At the gold price, 5 gold bars can sell for 1.05 million. With a flick of the wrist, your assets suddenly increase by over 1 million. This ability is practically cheating. Trying to upgrade the storage space with duplicate gold bars resulted in a red message. Duplicate items cannot be used for upgrades. Trying to exploit a loophole was thwarted, so I had to honestly use the original 2 gold bars. The numbers jumped, the panel refreshed, and the storage space increased to 72 cubic meters. The upgrade required 2,000 points. Duplicating the item twice required 10,000 points. The value doubled. The volume increased 8-fold, and the upgrade cost also doubled. 2 gold bars cost approximately 420,000. Gone. 3 years ago, I didn't even have the right to touch the upgrade button. My relative passed away unexpectedly, leaving behind millions in compensation and a treasure trove. Besides the house and a few gold bars, he also had 14.52 million in cash. But this amount wasn't enough in the apocalypse. He pulled out a few real estate agent numbers and dialed them. The first step was to sell the house. It was near the city center, in a good location, 128 square meters, and the price per square meter had already risen to 80,000 in peacetime. It was a valuable asset. Extreme cold of apocalypse. It was a deadly steel cage. Southern buildings dissipate heat quickly and have poor insulation. In his previous life, he had personally witnessed cold waves. When the southern cities, 80% froze to death. When the temperature dropped to -50 degrees Celsius, the reinforced concrete would freeze and crack. Within 2 years, that large numbers of high-rise buildings would collapse. He only made 2 demands: sell quickly and pay in full. He couldn't afford to delay or wait. The second step was to exchange it for gold bars. I planned to exchange all my cash for gold bars, double the value of the gold bars by duplication, and then sell the duplications back to the bank. The real gold bars would be used to upgrade the space of my treasure pot. Listed house for sale. Pawn shop on way. Sell the 5 duplicated gold bars. Another 1.05 million yuan went into my account, which made me feel more at ease that I in the apocalypse. Money is the least valuable thing, just waste paper. The most valuable thing is gold, a hard currency. After finishing my business, it got dark. I ate some grilled fish outside and went home to write an exercise plan. I in the apocalypse. The first to fail are the elderly, the weak, the sick, and the disabled. If heating or medicine is interrupted, they will not survive. To survive, I have to train myself to be able to endure and run. Just as I finished writing the plan, my phone pinged. A message popped up in my high school classmates group chat. The sender was Zhou Heng. Hey guys, are you free to get together tomorrow night? I'm going to treat you guys to a meal. At the Huazhao Club. Costs months of salary. Looking at these 2 lines, I'm reminded of many details. Past life. Zhou Heng was a classmate. But we were really just nodding. Acquaintances. We only really became close after my father passed away, and I received a huge compensation payment. During that period, I was suppressed, and I suddenly became very enthusiastic, constantly asking me to go out and cheer me up. Every time we went out, Zhou Heng would complain about being broke, and I always ended up paying. Now, looking back, I realize he just treated me like an ATM. Spending money at the antique stall today probably triggered him, and he's eager to fleece me. Sneer fine. I'll collect some interest first. Tomorrow, do morning exercise. Then, supplies list. Many things needed that I in this extremely cold, post-apocalyptic world. Based on my experience from my past life, I'll write down everything I can think of. This afternoon, I rented a 1,000 square meter warehouse for 60,000 yuan a month. The warehouse is both a shield and a temporary base. Supplies are first transported to the warehouse to minimize space when no one is paying attention. It's too easy for the neighbors to spot us if we bring them home every day. There's a small cubicle in the warehouse that I plan to move into in a few days. The supplies were almost arranged when it got dark. Zhou Heng urged me out, dawdled until almost 8 o'clock before going to the Huazhao Club private room. Zhou Heng, Wang Lei, and Tang Yao had drunk quite a bit. When Tang Yao saw me come in, his eyes His face reddened. He took my arm. Brother, why did you take so long? It's been so long. Didn't miss you. I'm not pretty. Skin. I look at everyone with affection. But I nose like that to his fish. In my previous life, it was the apocalypse. He's doing much better than me. Zhou Heng smiled mysteriously. Brothers, I've arranged a show. Broaden your horizons tonight. A moment later, four hot girls walked in. He sneered inwardly. Ugly toad. What a cultured guy. He glanced at the table. The drinks alone cost at least 10 or 20,000. But that was a question of whether he could pull out the money. Zhou Heng raised his glass and smiled at me. Son-in-law, these are for you and lazy. Thanks for treating me like a brother. Let's have a drink. I didn't even touch my glass. I have a cold. I took some cephalosporin. Can't drink. Drink as you please. They didn't think much. Continued drinking. At 1 a.m., the table was full of empty bottles. Except for me. The other three were quite drunk. Tang Yao swayed, wanting to go home. Zhou Heng patted his chest. I'll take you. I nodded. Okay, pay up. First. The waiter brought in the bill. Tonight's bill is 38,000. Rounded down to 38,000. I handed the bill over, and all three of them looked at me with raised eyebrows. What are you looking at me for? Didn't Zhou Heng say he was treating? Zhou Heng patted his pocket and then his phone. He smiled awkwardly. Oh. No, my phone's dead. Haizi's darted over. In my past life, I probably would have paid without a second thought. Now I just find it funny. He told the waiter to get him a charger. The waiter looked at Zhou Heng with disdain and turned to leave. The atmosphere in the private room froze. Wang Lei and Tang Yao were stunned. They were used to me paying, and never thought I would stand there. Zhou Heng couldn't keep his composure and forced a smile. Mr. Gu, you can have this tonight. I'll treat you next time. Okay. Zhou Heng interrupted directly. Mr. Heng, you're the one who called everyone out tonight and said you were treating. Don't tell me you're treating without even bringing any money. Zhou Heng's smile cracked, his anger flaring. He gritted his teeth. Young master, please pay the bill first. That we can talk about it later. He turned cold. So you really didn't bring any money? Zhou Heng's pride was crushed, his eyes reddening, as he forced out. Then let's split the bill. Tang Yao immediately objected. I'm not having fun, and you expect me, a girl, to pay? Wang Lei also frowned. Zhou Heng glared at me, practically ready to fight. I ignored him and paid for my 30 yuan lemonade. Zhou Heng's eyes widened. Didn't we agree to split the bill? I replied slowly. Yes, we each pay our own. I only had one lemonade tonight. The security camera will show that. After paying, I pushed open the door and left. The three people behind me froze. The waiter added, 37,970 yuan short. Please pay. Stepping out of the club, I felt completely relieved. On the way home, I blocked Zhou Heng and the others. I'd settle that score for now. The next day, I exercised as usual, just after breakfast. The agent called. Mr. Gu, client wants to see house. When is convenient for you? I paused, surprised. So fast. I'll be right now. Bring them over. A dozen minutes later, the doorbell rang. A middle-aged man in a jacket entered, followed by the beautiful agent, Chen Xian. Chen Xian was quick-witted, praising the Hasido the skies. I stood aside without interrupting. After viewing the house, the middle-aged man immediately decided to buy it in full for 9.45 million. It was ridiculously fast. After the two left, I saw the man reach out to Chen Xian, and he instantly understood why the transaction was so quick. The bank's SMS notification sound was like the starting gun, 9.45 million. I glanced at it and thought. Without a ripple, I grabbed the car keys and headed straight for the suburbs. In my past life, I struggled for 8 years in the apocalypse, and I'd seen too many people guarding a whole box of cash. Couldn't even buy moldy bread. Money is only real money when it's exchanged for the means to survive. The car drove through the city toward Xishan, a well-known wealthy area in Yunqing, but I was going to the outskirts. A half-mountainous area that wasn't fully developed yet. The road became increasingly remote, until finally it was just a winding cement road. What I valued was this seclusion. In the apocalypse, large populations are a menace. A detached house saves a lot of trouble. A gray-white 3-story detached villa stood alone halfway up the mountain, backed by the mountain, and facing a small artificial lake. The high elevation offered a wide view. No need to worry about blizzard or about ice formations later. The most crucial element of this villa, with its massive, independent basement, is that it's practically a shelter tailor-made for an apocalyptic world. The owner, a middle-aged man in his 50s, surnamed Zhang, with a beer belly and an anxious expression, said, "My whole family is immigrating next week. All the paperwork is done waiting for money.mr. Gu, if you can pay in full, I'll give you a 5% discount. Hurry to sell that, even saving on the agent by listing it online myself." I walked into the villa and quickly scanned it. It was a bare-bones house, which saved me the trouble of knocking down walls and making future renovations easier. Reaching the basement entrance, a chilly atmosphere hit me. It was a full 200 square meters with a 4-meter ceiling, a separate ventilation system, and an escape exit hidden behind a rockery in the backyard. Perfect. This is it.no nonsense. 8.8 million. Full payment. We can sign the contract today. Mr. Zhang's eyes widened. He hadn't expected such a decisive buyer. His house had been listed for almost half a year, but the location was too remote. Few people came. Okay, this price is fine. The two hit it off immediately, found lawyer on spot. Sign it, and transfer the money. Watching my bank card balance disappear, I actually felt relieved. Little Gu, you're so young. What are you planning to do with such a big house? Mr. Zhang asked, casually after finishing his business. I'm in the music business and plan to convert this place into a private recording studio, I said, offering my pre-prepared explanation. It's quiet here, no one will bother us. The basement's soundproofing is just right. This explains why I hold this long. Accumulating resources and renovating houses for art is a promising career path. Boss Zhang gave a thumbs up, took the contract, and left satisfied. Just as I got the keys, a red Porsche 718 pulled up at the gate. The door opened, and a long, slender, fair leg stepped out. Tang Yao was wearing a beige dress, her long hair flowing over her shoulders, and she wore delicate makeup. She was carrying an expensive-looking insulated lunchbox. Auntie, I said, I heard from Wang Lei that you sold the house you lost. I couldn't get through on the phone. I was so worried. He walked quickly over, his tone full of just the right amount of worry, his eyes slightly red. I was afraid you might do something rash. I've been looking for you for so long. Thank goodness, Zhou Heng said. You might be here looking at houses. I looked at him and almost laughed. It was this woman. In my past life, after Zhou Heng snatched my treasure bowl, I turned and threw myself into his arms that I was framed and being chased. With nowhere to run, I risked my life to go back to him, begging for food out of our past relationship. But he coldly said through the door, Master Gu, don't come and hurt me. We haven't dealt in ages that I remember that coldness clearly. How did you find this place? My tone was calm. I was worried about you. Tang Yao stepped forward, naturally wanting to take my arm, but I dodged him. His face stiffened for a moment. His smile became sweeter. I made you a bento. You probably haven't eaten yet, right? Try my cooking. The bento box opened, revealing exquisitely arranged Japanese eel rice and tempura, the aroma filling the air. I glanced at it but didn't touch it. Just say what you need. Tang Yao's smile froze. He hadn't expected me to. So cold and indifferent, completely different from the fawning, spendthrift Simphi used to be. I.e., what's wrong? Is the house sale going badly? Are you in a bad mood? He probed cautiously, his eyes glancing at the enormous villa. I heard you sold it for over 10 million. Are you having some trouble? If you need money, tell me. I have some here. He reached into his bag for his card. What a dramatic display of affection. I sneered, inwardly, forcing a bitter smile onto my face. I sighed, leaned against the car door, and lit a cigarette. Don't even mention it. I'm so annoyed. Tang Yao, seeing an opening, immediately leaned closer, her voice even softer. What's wrong? Tell me. I'll help you out. Is there anything we can't talk about? I took a drag, exhaled a smoke ring, looked into the distance. I sold my house for an investment, I said. Tang Yao's eyes lit up. A private equity project, introduced by an uncle of mine, guaranteed profit. I lowered my voice, feigning mystery. 200% return. Tang Yao's voice instantly rose, shock and greed practically written on his face. Realizing his lapse, he quickly covered his mouth and lowered his voice again. 200%. Really? Such a good thing still exists. Of course it's true. I stubbed out my cigarette, looking regretful. What a pity, I said. The project has such a high entry barrier. It starts at 10 million. I glanced at Tang Yao, a hint of disappointment in my eyes. I sold my house and used all the money I had. I'm still short by over 1 million to reach that amount. Seeing such a great opportunity about to slip away, how could I not be annoyed? With that, I kicked the car wheel in frustration. Tang Yao, with perfect acting skills, began to breathe rapidly. A 200% return rate. Investing 10 million would turn it into 30 million. He was calculating the shortfall of over 1 million in his mind. Over the years, he had saved nearly 2 million in savings from managing fish ponds. If he could catch this wave, investing 1 million would turn it into 3 million. That was much faster than painstakingly keeping those suckers hooked. He watched me, my mind racing that I wasn't lying to him. My annoyance didn't seem feigned. Besides, I had sold my house and had nearly 10 million in hand. The perfect time to act impulsively and believe insider information, even with the risks. The rewards are too tempting. Aunt Tang Yao's voice was sickeningly sweet. She leaned close to me, warm body almost touching mine. More than 1 million short, right? No, I'll help you. He looked up at me with watery eyes, full of sincerity and dedication. Not enough money. I have some here. It's not much, but I can still come up with more than 1 million. Don't worry, you can't miss such a good opportunity. I sneered inwardly. The fish had finally taken the bait. My face showed a shocked and moved expression. Yao Yao you. I grabbed Tang Yao's shoulders, my voice trembling. This is more than 1 million. No small amount. For you. Any amount of money is worth it. Tang Yao interrupted me firmly. I don't want to see you miss an opportunity because of this little bit of money. Your business is my business. He gazed at me intently, as if the man before him was his whole world. I knew he wasn't looking at me. It was just a 200% return on investment. Yao Yao, you're so good to me, I said, moved, pulling her into my arms, from where she couldn't see. His eyes were cold. I really don't know how to thank you, I said. Do we even need to say thank you? Tang Yao leaned against me, a smug smile on his face, as if he saw 3 million beckoning him. He gently pushed me away, took a bank card from his bag. There's 1.5 million in here. The pin is 6/8. You can use it first, he said, shoving the card into my hand with swift, decisive movements. Afraid I'd change my mind. If it's not enough, I'll think of something else. Holding that card, I felt it weighed over 1,000 pounds. This is all about Tang Yao's greed and stupidity. He owes me. I'll repay him from my past life. Okay, I'll nod emphatically. My eyes reddened. Yao. Wait until this project makes money. I promise, I'll marry you in style. I made a promise I never made in my past life. Tang Yao smiled brightly. The weight in my heart finally lifted. Okay, I'll go back now. I won't disturb you while you're on your business. Having achieved his goal, Tang Yao didn't want to stay a second longer, afraid of asking about project details and upsetting me. Go quickly and gather the funds. Don't delay. He got into his Porsche, not forgetting to wink before starting the car. Waiting for your good news. The red sports car roared away. I stood there, the emotion on my face instantly fading. A cold, lifeless sight remained. I looked down at the bank card in my hand, wanting to witness a joke that in my previous life, I was betrayed and killed by Zhou Heng and Tang Yao, my body mutilated beyond recognition. In this life, the game had only just begun. I was going to make this woman lose all her savings and carry an inexhaustible debt for the rest of her life. After handling Tang Yao, I didn't linger. I drove straight to the West City building materials market. It was a chaotic place, with few legitimate stores, and mostly unlicensed construction teams squatting on the roadside holding up signs to solicit work. My goal was clear, sought Foreman Lao Zhang in Apocalypse's third year. This man led the survivor base's operations. He was skilled, tough, and notoriously bad-tempered. I stopped in front of a smoky tea house, pushing open the greasy curtain. The pungent smell of tobacco mixed with the stench of sweat wafted over. A burly, 50-year-old man, a cigarette dangling from his lips, slammed his cards down on the table. Damn it, I lost again. I walked over without a word, pulled a stack of blueprints from my bag, slammed them on the table. Zhang Gong, taking jobs. Old Zhang raised his bloodshot eyes, exhaled a smoke ring, and asked, what kind of job? Villa renovation. 1 month deadline. Urgent. A bald man standing nearby scoffed. Kid, you want to work for old Zhang? Have you brought enough money? His skills are expensive. Old Zhang ignored him, slowly unfolding the blueprints. He glanced at them, his brow furrowing, then looked again, and stubbed out his cigarette, as if looking at something disgusting. This is a damn renovation. Old Zhang pointed at the blueprints and yelled, replacing the whole house with the highest quality blueprints. The interior walls are made of bulletproof glass with a 30 centimeters thick extruded polystyrene insulation layer. The basement has been excavated and transformed into a fully enclosed, temperature-controlled planting area. The entire load-bearing structure of the roof has been rebuilt and covered with solar panels. I slammed the blueprints on the table and pointed at my nose. Is this building a house or a turtle shell? The surrounding workers were attracted by the noise and peeked over. This design is too perverted. How can you do it like this? Turning a perfectly good villa into a stuffy canister. What's the point? I remain calm. Here are the blueprints. Get to work. Can you? Old Zhang laughed angrily. Yes, of course I can do it. The problem is, if you do it like this, the house will be ruined. The structure will be completely destroyed, and the aesthetics will be completely lost. The property management and urban construction departments won't let you do this. This is illegal construction. He leaned back. I lit another cigarette. A look of disdain. Listen to my advice. Young man, don't squander your money. I'm not taking this job. I didn't argue. Just flash my phone, showing my bank balance and the market price. Old Zhang was stunned. This project, including labor and materials, will cost at least 3 million. I'll give you 6 million. I turned the screen towards him. The number's dazzling. Half upfront payment now, 3 million. Another 3 million after completion, and a 50,000 red envelope for each worker. The tea house fell silent instantly. Even the mahjong game on the table was forgotten. Everyone stared intently at my phone screen. And that young, calm face, 0.3 million for the project, doubled. An A50,000 red envelope for each worker upon completion. This wasn't a client. This was a god of wealth. Old Zhang, his cigarette ash dangling from his mouth, had never seen anyone spend money like this. In his decades in the business, his eyes shifted, suspicion, wariness, and an undisguised greed. What exactly are you trying to do? Old Zhang lowered his voice and leaned closer. This project doesn't look like something a decent person would do. Have you gotten into trouble, and are you building a place to hide from your debts? I put away my phone. I'm an artist, I explained, meeting Old Zhang's gaze. I need an absolutely quiet, absolutely constant temperature. Creative space, free from external light and sound. The basement will be used to cultivate some special luminescent plants. As art installations, the solar panels on the roof are to ensure my equipment has a 24-hour power supply. Listening to his explanation, it was absurd. But given his identity as an artist, it seemed plausible. After all, there are plenty of rich lunatics. Old Zhang was skeptical, his face twitching. Even so, what if something went wrong and they traced it back to me? I signed a waiver. I was prepared. I pulled out a printed document. All design and construction requirements are my personal proposals, and I assume full responsibility no matter what structural problems occur, or if I'm reported by neighbors or investigated by relevant departments. It's none of your business or your team's. I handed over the pen and signed. 3.5 million will be in your account immediately. 0.500, 000 is just a reassurance for the brothers. The money was well spent. The reason was flawless. The responsibility was cleanly absolved. Old Zhang stared at the agreement, breathing heavily. Several workers behind him. Everyone's eyes were red envy. A 50,000 yuan red envelope was over half a year's wages. Brother Zhang, take it okay? Yes, Brother Zhang. You have a liability waiver. What are you scared of? Old Zhang took a deep drag. Cigarette, the butt glowing in the dim light. Finally, he smashed the cigarette butt on the ground and crushed it out with his foot. Damn it, he cursed. Snatched the pen and said, damn it. Pay up. Don't even mention a turtle shell. Even if you want me to turn your coffin into a duplex, I'll do it for you. Sign and fingerprint the document. I'll transfer it to your Alipay account right now. 3.5 million yuan arrived. The notification sound was particularly crisp in the noisy tea house. Old Zhang looked at the long string of change, his hands trembling. He suddenly stood up and waved his hand. Don't you fucking stand there. Grab your weapons and come with me. The workers stood up in a flurry, with eyes gleaming and eager for a sure win. Efficiency was astonishing. Half an hour later, the first truck stopped at the gate of the Shishan villa. Old Zhang led his men quickly poured into the building that was about to be torn apart. I stood in the yard, watching them busily preparing. A weight lifted from my shoulders. The fortress plan was officially launched. Just then, my phone vibrated with a WeChat message from Aunt Tang Yao. I've transferred all my savings to you, but it's still not enough to meet the threshold you mentioned. I just asked Zhou Heng, and he agreed to lend me the money. Don't worry, I'll definitely help you make up the rest. Once I've raised the money, I'll go. Looking at the screen, my expression was icy. Tang Yao not only invested all his money, but also actively borrowed from Zhou Heng. He bound the two people I hated most in my past life together with an invisible thread. How wonderful. This drama is getting more and more interesting. I put away my phone and looked into the distance. The sky was getting dark, and the mountain wind was chilly. A global extreme cold was brewing, and I had to sharpen my strongest claws and fangs before the snowstorm arrived. When Tang Yao called, Old Zhang's construction team had just smashed a large hole in the load-bearing wall on the first floor of the villa. Dust filled the air, and the screeching of the electric drill was deafening. Grandpa, I've scraped together the money. On the other end of the line, Tang Yao's voice betrayed a mix of boastful excitement and barely concealed exhaustion. I'll transfer the 800,000 to you right now. I'll figure out the rest later. He stepped outside to avoid the noise. 800,000. Didn't you say? I deliberately dragged out the word. His tone carried a perfectly measured disappointment. Oh, don't mention it. The money in that card is from a large investment. Withdrawing it requires paperwork, and there's no time. Tang Yao hurriedly explained, afraid the bait fish would escape. This 800,000 is borrowed from a friend. I also borrowed 500,000 from Zhou Heng, along with shockingly high interest rates. But it's worth it for your project. She deliberately pointed out Zhou Heng and the loan sharks, portraying herself as someone who would do anything for love. I almost burst out laughing. Zhou Heng's money was such a pleasant surprise that I held back my laughter and put on a touched tone. Yao Yao. I really don't know what to say. Don't say anything. Just send me the account number, and I'll transfer the money right away. By the way, shouldn't we sign an agreement? It's such a big sum of money. My parents will kill me if they find out. Tang Yao seems cautious, but she just wants to make the investment a reality. Of course, I readily agreed that I'll draft a nominee agreement right away. Just come and sign it. Half an hour later, Tang Yao parked his Porsche in front of the dusty villa. He frowned in disgust, carefully navigating the gravel in his high heels, and found me waiting in the car. I handed him a 4-sheet printed at a roadside shop. The so-called nominee shareholding agreement was ridiculously simple. It didn't even include the ID numbers of the two parties, let alone any mention of notarization or guarantee. Tang Yao glanced at it and saw the words, investment returns distributed proportionally. His eyes lit up. He was completely focused on the 200% return rate and had no time to scrutinize the terms. He quickly signed his name. Okay, I'll transfer the money. Tang Yao operated his phone, and with a notification sound, 800,000 yuan arrived. Auntie, you really need to take this project seriously, he said, putting away his phone. With a worried sigh, don't worry, I said, putting away the scrap of paper. With a sincere expression, once I make money, I'll be the first to pay you back your principal and interest. Not a penny less. Of course, not a penny less. I'll pay you back in another world, principal and interest, and send you off satisfied. The warmth on my face vanished instantly. I sat back in the car, looking at my phone. The extra 800,000 yuan in my bank account didn't waste a second. I immediately transferred it to another card specifically for purchasing supplies. My actions were swift and efficient. After finishing, I started the car, the engine roaring past the construction noise behind me, and sped towards my next destination, the Xiongshi coal mine in the western suburbs of Yunqing. This used to be Yunqing's largest, the coal supply base. now lies like a dying old beast. At the edge of the overgrown industrial zone, the towering chimneys no longer emit smoke. The conveyor belts are rusty, and the large red characters at the factory gate proclaim its demise. Production halted, clearance sale, boss fled. I parked my car some distance and walked into the dilapidated factory area. A gray-haired man with a worried face was squatting at the entrance of the weighing room, smoking silently. It was Li Weiguo, the coal mine owner. "Boss, I want coal," I said, getting straight to the point. Li Weiguo raised his eyelids weakly and pointed to a mountain of coal behind him. "How much do you want?" "See for yourself. Anthracite, 1,200 yuan per ton. Pay first, then we'll take delivery. This price isn't expensive in peacetime." But I knew Li Weiguo was more anxious than anyone else. The factory owed the bank. Tens of millions soft workers haven't been paid for 3 months. If we don't recoup the funds soon, he'll become a deadbeat. The price is too high. I shook my head, pulled out a pack of Zhonghua cigarettes from my pocket, handed one to him. "Mr. Li, let's be frank. I know the situation at your place. What you need right now is cash. A lot of cash. Not to sell this. Black lumps." Li Weiguo took the cigarette, his face darkening further. "What do you mean? I want it all." I pointed to the several small mountain-like coal piles. "I estimate you have at least 1,000 tons of anthracite here." Li Weiguo, cigarette dangling, was stunned. "You? Are you kidding me? 1,000 tons? Do you know how much that costs?" "Never mind what I'm doing." I stubbed out my cigarette, my tone forceful. "I'm just asking if you're going to sell. I'll give you a price. 800,000. 800,000. Li Wei jumped up like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. "Why don't you just rob 1,000 tons of coal? You're giving me 800,000. That's only 800 per ton. My market price is 1,200. Before he could finish speaking, I held my phone up to him. The screen showed a string of zeros, making Li Weiguo's eyes glaze over. "Boss Li, I'm not haggling with you. My voice is cold. Sell me these 1,000 tons of coal now. 800,000 cash, immediate payment. You can use it to gamble on the bank's hole, pay your workers' wages, and salvage your last bit of dignity. If you don't want to sell, that's fine too. You can keep holding on to your 1,200 per ton and see what happens when you go bankrupt. Can you sell 100 tons before then?" My words struck a nerve with Li Weiguo. He looked at my young but expressionless face, then at the tempting number on his phone. Sweat beaded on his forehead. 800,000 was indeed far below market price, but it was his only lifeline. "What are you buying so much coal for?" "I'm happy to." I put away my phone, losing patience. "Sell or not?" "1, 2. "I'll sell," Li Weiguo shouted. Before I counted to 3. He seemed drained of all strength, slumping against the wall. "But I have a condition," Li Weiguo gasped. "The money must be in my account now. No problem." I nodded. "But I also have a condition. The goods can't be taken away all at once. Starting tonight, every night after 10 p.m., arrange trucks that transport the coal in batches to a warehouse on the hillside in the west of the city. That I'll send him the warehouse address I rented long ago. That I'll calculate the freight separately. Remember, the quieter the better. That I don't want anyone to know I bought so much coal." Li Weiguo stared blankly at him. He thought this young man was getting sillier and sillier, but he had no right to ask why. "Okay, I'll do as you say. Deal done. I'll transfer the money on the spot." Looking at the huge sum of 800,000 yuan he received on his phone, Li Weiguo's eyes turned red, as if he had grabbed the last piece of driftwood. At this moment, my phone vibrated at a text message from an unknown number. "Goose. Watch out club. I remember that debt. You can hide now, but you can't hide forever. You just wait." The number was unfamiliar, but I knew perfectly well who it was from that tone. I gave a cold laugh and glanced at the account I'd just emptied. There was 500,000 yuan in it. The very same person who'd sent me those threatening text messages. It was a loan shark loan, using my enemy's money to buy coal for the winter. Using my enemy's money to build a doomsday fortress. The feeling was indescribable. I was too lazy to reply. I just blocked and deleted him, like crushing a buzzing fly. "Little brother, the contract signed." Li Weiguo walked over with the sales contract, a smile plastered on his face. "Don't worry, I'll personally arrange the transportation. I guarantee it'll be done perfectly, without anyone noticing." After taking the money, his attitude became much warmer. I nodded and was about to leave, when Li Weiguo seemed to remember. "What? A casual remark," he said. "It's strange. The market this year is really weird. That My factory hasn't been open for almost half a year. But this week suddenly several groups of people came to buy coal, and they all wanted a lot, acting mysteriously." I stopped abruptly, turned around, and my eyes sharpened. "Oh, there are others too." Li Weiguo, oblivious to anything amiss, continued. "2 came the day before yesterday, and another one came yesterday. They're just like you, not very talkative, pay quickly, want anthracite, transport it secretly at night. That I'm thinking, it's not even cold today. Why are they all hoarding coal like they're preparing for winter? Could it be that the weather is about to change?" Li Weiguo's last sentence was a joke, but it sent a chill down my spine. My expression remained unchanged. My heart sank. Were others secretly stockpiling supplies? Were there other reborn individuals? Or had the state apparatus detected something and was quietly preparing through unofficial channels? Either way, it meant I wasn't the only player in this doomsday game. Time was tighter than I'd imagined. Li Weigu's words made my heart sink. But I remained outwardly calm. Was I not the only one reborn? The thought was quickly extinguished, and no matter how many people knew the truth, I had to be at the forefront. Maybe, I replied, turning and striding away. Time was tighter than I'd anticipated. After leaving the coal mine, I drove nonstop, visiting over a dozen gas stations around Yunqing. Each time, I only bought 4 or 5 oil drums, claiming it was for refueling generators at a construction site. The staff, seeing my luxury car, were polite and turned a blind eye one afternoon. I painstakingly stockpiled 2 tons of diesel fuel, storing it in several short-term rental warehouses like a rabbit. But that wasn't enough. Generators were the real problem. Ordinary household generators couldn't withstand the extreme cold. I needed industrial-grade beasts that as darkness fell. I turned into a backstreet without streetlights. This was Yunqing's black market, specializing in industrial equipment of dubious origin. The air was thick with the smell of engine oil and iron. Smelling rust and cheap alcohol, I walked into a shop with a sign that read, "Old Gun Machine Repair." A one-eyed man was wiping a huge piston, without even looking up. 2 elite diesel generators over 10 kilowatts. Military grade or imported, reliable, quality. I told him. The one-eyed man stopped and asked me to look him over. "You don't have some, but they're not cheap," he said. "Show the goods." The one-eyed man led me through piles of junk to the backyard. 2 enormous machines lay in a corner. Their dark green casings printed with foreign characters. They looked sturdy, German-made, retired from the military, well-maintained. A full load for an hour only consumed 2 liters of fuel. The one-eyed man patted the machine case, making a loud thumping sound. Next to it were 2 5-ton oil tanks. "If you want it, take the set," I said, eyes lit up. "It's practically tailor-made," I exclaimed. "How much?" "1 generator, 300,000. 1 oil tank, 50,000. 1 set, 700,000. No bargaining." The one-eyed man made a 7 gesture. "This price is more than double the market price, but I don't even blink that I only need time. Money is nothing that I want 2 sets." I pulled out a black travel bag, opened it, and found bundles of cash, 1.4 million. "I have only one request. Deliver it to this address before midnight tonight." I handed him a note. The one-eyed man looked at the bag of money. His eyes were filled with greed. He'd never seen anyone so straightforward in all his years. "No problem, boss, don't worry. I guarantee it'll be delivered before midnight." The transaction was complete. I turned to leave, unaware that a pair of venomous eyes were glaring at me from a dimly lit corner. Zhou Heng, the coin dealer, had originally planned to find some cheap electronic parts tonight. But he'd run into me. Even more unexpectedly, I'd thrown away over 1 million yuan in cash like it was trashed. Zhou Hao's heart tightened. He remembered how he'd bowed and scraped for tens of thousands of yuan. This Gu kid was blind. He'd definitely overpaid for that coin last time. The kid had gotten a windfall from him. Jealousy instantly consumed him. Zhou Hao watched me leave the black market, quietly pulling out his phone. "Hey, brother Biao, it's me, Zhou Hao," he whispered. The voice was sinister and ruthless. "He's all alone. He drives a powerful Toyota Land Cruiser and has at least 1 million in cash on him. Okay, I'll wait for you at the alley entrance." Hung up the phone, put on his hat, and followed. It was 11 p.m. in the abandoned warehouse district of the west of the city that I stood in the center of the warehouse, surrounded by newly arrived heavy equipment, 2 German military-grade generators, 2 giant oil tanks, and 50 tons of anthracite coal delivered by Li Weigui. I reached out and touched the cold coal. With a thought, the black mountain of metal monsters before me vanished into thin AI. My consciousness sank into the treasure basin space. 2 black mountains appeared on the previously empty land. 1 of coal, 1 of grain, with 2 generators and oil tanks standing beside them. I poured all the diesel into the oil tanks. Watching the level rise, an unprecedented sense of security washed over me. This was the capital to survive in the apocalypse. This was the confidence for revenge. I locked the warehouse. I walked out of the warehouse area and turned into a narrow alley leading to the main road. As soon as I entered, I sensed footsteps behind me, slow and deliberate. Like a cat playing with a mouse. I smiled coldly, neither turning around nor speeding up. Continuing my unhurried walk, the alley was deep and winding. I deliberately chose a dead end at the end. I turned around, and 5 figures blocked my way. The one in the lead, thin as a bamboo pole, with a sickly flushed face, was Zhou Hao. His 4 burly thugs, carrying steel pipes and baseball bats, glared menacingly. Zhou Hao clapped his hands as he walked out, smiling sinisterly. "Boss, we meet again," he said, sizing me up. "I want to see my captured prey. Isn't that a coincidence? I was just thinking about how badly I made that deal last time and wanted to chat with you. When I ran into this blonde guy thumped his palm with a bat. Kid, stop talking nonsense. My boss is giving you face by talking to you. Hand over your valuables if you know what's good for you. Here, leave the keys to your Land Cruiser again. We might consider making things a little easier for you." Another burly man swung a steel pipe, making a whirring sound. My gaze swept past them and landed on Zhou Hao's face. "My eyes see. What do you want?" Zhou Hao thought I was scared, and his smile grew even more smug. Simply, he held up 1 finger. "That ancient coin from last time. I checked it out. Worth at least this much." He held up 1 finger. 1 million, he said. "I'm a fair businessman. If you make money, I can't lose money." Zhou Hao's sinister laugh echoed in the alley. Boss, you sold the ancient coin too cheaply last time. Can you make up the difference? Du Hao's voice reverberated in the alley, carrying a cat-and-mouse smugness. Behind him, several thugs grinned wickedly. The steel pipe and baseball bat in his hand gleamed coldly in the dim light. Hey kid, did you hear that? My brother's making you pay the difference. The blonde thug pounded the wall with his baseball bat, cement dust falling everywhere. Another burly man, his knuckles cracking, clenched his fists and approached step by step. Leave the money and car keys. We can let you walk into the hospital yourself. The alley was eerily quiet, save for the heavy footsteps. I leaned against the cold wall, my face expressionless. I didn't look at the approaching thugs. My gaze was fixed on Du Hao's greedy face. Are you sure? I said, my voice low but chilling. Du Hao paused, then felt a wave of humiliation. You're about to die, and dare to act tough? Get him, Du Hao roared, face contorted with rage. Break his legs. Let's see what he does next. The arrogant words had barely spoken when blonde and burly men simultaneously raised their weapons and viciously hurled them at me. Just as the steel pipe was about to hit me, I moved. I simply raised my hand casually. No one saw what happened. My right hand suddenly produced a small black spray can and a thick white mist, accurately sprayed towards the two men charging at the front. Screams instantly rang out. The blonde-haired man and the burly man, as if their eyes were on fire, dropped their weapons, covered their faces with their hands, and rolled on the ground in agony. My eyes, what is that? This sudden turn of events stunned everyone else. Du Hao's smile froze, as he watched helplessly as his two thugs were instantly crippled. You, what the hell did you use? The answer to him was, my second. With my next move, I flicked my left hand, sending a white plastic bag flying into the air. Before Du Hao could even see what I was doing, I flicked my wrist and a pebble struck the bag precisely. Bang! The bag exploded in midair, instantly filling the alley with a cloud of white powder. Ha ha ha, damn it. I can't open my eyes. The remaining two thugs were also blinded, choked, tears and snot streaming. They flailed wildly, completely thrown into chaos. In just 2 seconds, all 4 burly men were on the ground. The spray can and the plastic bag had already been stored away in my treasure trove space. Only Du Hao and I remained, standing there dumbfounded. Du Hao's mind was blank. He couldn't understand what had just happened. Where did the can and bag come from? Was it magic? Fear surged from the soles of his feet to his head. As he watched me approach step by step, my legs went weak, and I instinctively took 2 steps back. Don't come any closer. I ignored him and stepped forward, kicking Du Hao squarely in the chest. Thud. Du Hao flew like a broken sack, his back slamming heavily against the wall. Tears streamed down his face from the pain. Before he could struggle, I was already on top of him, my foot pinning his wrist. Looking down at him, I saw. Where's the thing? What? What is it? Du Hao grimaced in pain, still stubbornly. Refusing to admit, I said no more. And with a sudden, forceful kick, Du Hao let out a pig-like scream. My wrist iced in excruciating pain. That jade pendant you're wearing. I'll tell you. It's completely broken. It's in my inner pocket. I crouched down, ignoring Du Hao's cries, and reached into his pocket. Soon, I pulled out something cold and hard. A jade pendant. Its surface a warm, lustrous green, still gleaming even in the dim light. That is obviously a good thing. The jade pendant has an ancient style and is engraved with intricate cloud patterns. It's this one. I gasped. Previous life, when the apocalypse came and order collapsed. Du Hao used this ancestral jade pendant for a top-tier shelter ticket from a powerful figure, thus surviving the most difficult years. Meanwhile, I was like a dog, scrambling for food in the freezing cold. I never imagined that I would end up in his hands in this life. Just then, Du Hao, blinded by the excruciating pain, he flashed a ruthless glint, suddenly pulled a switchblade from his waist with his intact hand and stabbed it viciously into my thigh. That I'll fight to death. The blade flashed coldly, but I was faster than him. I saw my right hand flip over in my hand, which was empty a second ago. The next second, a thick red brick suddenly appeared. This brick appeared without warning, as if it had materialized out of thin air. Lu Hao's thrusting knife froze in midair. His eyes widened in disbelief. A brick. A brick. Where brick origin? Before thinking, the brick in my hand slammed down with a thud. The red brick grazed Du Hao's cheek and slammed heavily onto the concrete ground near his ear. Gravel flew everywhere, cutting Du Hao's face and leaving several bloody gashes. Du Hao was completely terrified. The force of the falling brick stung his face. If it had hit his head, a hot stream of urine would have flowed down his crotch, instantly filling the air with a foul stench. Du Hao wet himself in fear. I stood up, took a step back in disgust, and put away the jade pendant. I looked down at Du Hao, trembling like a sieve, defecating. With eyes like I was looking at trash, I uttered those 2 words, "We're even," and turned to leave without looking back. Only 5 blind thugs and Du Hao, sprawled in his urine, remained in the alley. I walked out of the alley and returned to the streetlights. A cool breeze blew. I took out the jade pendant. Icy cold to the touch, yet exuded a warm, spiritual energy. The moment my fingertips completely enveloped the pendant, a violent tremor erupted deep within my mind. The treasure basin space, which was one with it, was resonating. Immediately afterward, a dazzling light exploded in my mind, eclipsing the blazing sun and swallowing all my senses. I froze my steps, halting. A clear voice echoed in my mind. The space was about to upgrade. The ancient jade pendant in my palm instantly became scalding hot, not from the touch, but from the trembling of my soul. The pendant didn't shatter, it transformed into a handful of emerald light, like living fireflies, which burrowed into my palm. The next second, everything went black. My consciousness was forcibly dragged into the treasure basin space by an irresistible force that the space was expanding violently. The earth was shaking and stretching. The land that had stretched out before my eyes was now visibly expanding into endless darkness. The gray sky above was torn apart, higher and farther. The once mountainous coal and grain have shrunk to two inconspicuous mounts in this cataclysmic change. The space has expanded tenfold. The original 100 cubic meters of storage space has skyrocketed to 1,000 cubic meters, a huge space the size of a basketball court, with a 10-meter high ceiling. Before I could even process it, a completely new flow of information surged into my mind like a sudden awakening. There were no words, no sounds. It was a new instinctive ability, danger perception. I could foresee all hostility directed at me within a 10-meter radius, and all impending natural disasters. I suddenly opened my eyes. I was still standing under the street lamp, my hands empty, as if everything that had just happened was an illusion. I closed my eyes and tried to activate that newfound power. In an instant, the world changed. The hurried pedestrians, the whistling cars, even the stray cats foraging in the corners were all covered with a faint color, mostly white and blue, representing peace. The man riding the electric scooter was frustrated by the traffic jam, a cloud of anxious yellow floating above his head. The young man walking and arguing on the phone was filled with anger. My emotions were a jumble of emotions, but none of them concerned me. My consciousness spread outward like an invisible net. Suddenly, I caught a faint, yet incredibly clear glimpse of black. Across the street, a black sedan was parked, and a man inside was staring at me coldly through the window. I could even see that malice spreading through my senses, like ink dripping into clear water. I turned my head in, my gaze met the man's precisely. The man, not expecting to be discovered, froze, immediately looked away, started the car, and fled in a panic. I didn't chase him. I stood there, feeling the enormous changes brought about by my new ability. This wasn't just precognition. It was seizing the initiative. With it, in the coming apocalypse, any conspiracy or trickery against me would have nowhere to hide. Regained composure and drove to Hillside Villa. It was completely dark. The villa area was shrouded in an eerie glow. The sunset was abnormal, with a sickly purplish-red halo, as if a huge bruise had been punched into the sky. Old Zhang's construction team had finished work, leaving only him to do the final checks. Young Master Gu, look at old Zhang. He came to me. A smug face. The outer walls are all reinforced, and a bulletproof glass is installed. This wall is so strong that even a car thinks twice before crashing, let alone a person. The entire villa has become a gray steel fortress. All the windows have been replaced with thick bulletproof glass. The outer walls are made of double-layered reinforced concrete, and the 3-meter high courtyard wall has a pre-installed electric grid interface. It looks incredibly sturdy. I walked around the villa without saying a word, activating my danger perception. I in my perception world. The entire villa was enveloped in a thick, safe, blue aura, solid and reliable. But when I reached the southwest corner of the villa, my steps suddenly faltered. It was the corner of the wall, right next to a lush, century-old banyan tree. In this area, the blue aura was noticeably weaker. And even at the point where the wall met the tree canopy, a faint red tinge of vulnerability and threat seeped out to the naked eye. There was nothing wrong with it. But under the sense of danger, it was a fatal blind spot. Old Zhang, I pointed to that corner. There's no room for negotiation. This 3-meter wall will be completely demolished tomorrow. Old Zhang, I stammered. Boss, this wall was just built. It's very sturdy. Demolish it. The sound cooled down. We immediately dug another 2 meters down, repouring it with the highest grade reinforced concrete. That I looked up at the banyan tree branches protruding into the wall, the canopy above 3 rings of high voltage electric fence, and then installed 2 sets of infrared beam alarms, directly connected to the villa's security control room. Old Zhang was completely dumbfounded. He opened his mouth and couldn't help but complain. Boss, what are you doing? Digging the foundation and installing electric fences. This is a villa renovation, not a prison. Is this necessary? Who would go to such lengths to break into this place? I didn't explain. I pointed to the eerie, purplish-red sky above. Old Zhang, look at this sky. My voice was calm, but it carried a chilling power. Something was wrong. To prevent problems before they arose, Old Zhang's phone lit up. A news article popped up. The young worker under him curiously clicked on it, and the announcer's clear and resonant voice rang out. Breaking news. Affected by a rare geomagnetic storm. Many high-latitude regions around the world have seen spectacular aurora phenomena. Rare red and green auroras have also been observed in Mo, northern Xinjiang, and other places in China. Photos from around the world flashed across the screen. The sky torn into an eerie, flowing, multicolored curtain, both beautiful and unsettling. One of the sky's colors was exactly the same as the crimson sunset above them. Astronomers stated that this geomagnetic anomaly was unprecedented in scale, and its specific cause was still under urgent investigation. The public was urged not to panic. Old Zhang looked at the eerie aurora on his phone, then at the oppressive sky above, and finally at my calm, expressionless face. A chill ran down his spine without warning, and he shivered inexplicably. "I understand, boss," Old Zhang said, his voice dry, without a trace of doubt. "I'll bring people over first thing tomorrow morning that I guarantee I'll get it all sorted out for you." I nodded, turned, and went inside. The spacious living room was filled with cement and dust. I stood before the huge bulletproof floor-to-ceiling window and looked, looking out at the silent night, a sense of security, as if in control of everything, welled up inside me. My phone vibrated. It was a message from Tang Yao. "Grandpa, when will I see returns on my investment? Zhou Heng is pressing for interest payments." I looked at the kissing emoji, gave a cold laugh, and quickly replied with tap of finger. "Soon." Big surprise. The message was sent successfully. I put down my phone and looked out the window. At the century-old banyan tree in the courtyard, standing quietly in the night. Suddenly, a leaf detached from its branch. Instead of drifting in the wind, it swirled in the deathly air and gently fell. It was a withered yellow leaf. Its edges curled, its veins shriveled, exuding an aura of death. It had only just appeared that the night passed without incident. The next morning, as the first rays of dawn pierced through the bulletproof glass, I found myself standing in the villa's basement, which had been completely renovated by Old Zhang's construction team. The walls and ceiling were reinforced with waterproof and soundproof layers. The ventilation system, directly connected to a concealed external air vent, was the heart of this doomsday fortress. With a thought, brand new equipment appeared out of thin air that I unpacked it, set up metal supports, and fixed a high-powered plant growth light. The purplish-red light illuminated the entire space, making it resemble an alien base from a science fiction movie. Next came the hydroponic system, laying out nutrient solution circulation pipes and placing white planting troughs. After completing these, I took out several packets of seeds from my space, fast-growing lettuce and exceptionally cold-resistant chives. The fastest way to obtain vitamins in the early days of the apocalypse, that I scattered the seeds into the nutrient solution-soaked seedling mechanism, working swiftly. A few hours later, the last light was adjusted, and an underground ecological garden began to take shape. Standing in the purplish-red light, I seemed to see tiny green shoots emerging. In a few days, the color of life, more luxurious than gold in the future. Without lingering, I turned. I walked to another corner of the basement, where a massive, top-of-the-line water purification system stood. This thing could handle almost all pollutants, including heavy metals and nuclear radiation. I connected it to a deep underground well and then to the rainwater collection system on the roof, creating a perfect closed-loop water system. Turned on valve dot and started the machine. A low humming sound filled the air. The indicator light lit up. Clear water gushed out through the observation pipe. Scooped up a handful. The water was icy cold and slightly sweet. Not wasting any, I directly connected the outlet to my treasure trove space. First, I entered the space and conjured the outline of a standard swimming pool. The next second, a huge white pool formed on the open ground. Pure water gushed from the void, cascading into the bottom of the pool with a splashing sound. Watching the water level rise, my sense of security surged again. Food, water, and energy, the three essential elements of survival, were firmly in my grasp. Just then, a sudden, urgent doorbell ring interrupted, or rather, it was banging on the door. I frowned slightly, my attention returning to the security camera. A thin, middle-aged man in a cheap suit, his hair slicked back, stood impatiently at the door. The property manager. I turned off the security camera, went upstairs to open door. "Hello, I'm the property manager here, that am, my surname is Wang." Manager Wang scrutinized me with a stern face. I peeked into the yard. "You're the new owner. Do you know how much noise your construction has caused?" The property management has received several complaints. His tone was condescending and accusatory. "And this exterior wall renovation and the heightening of the yard wall are both illegal constructions. According to regulations, they must all be demolished, restored to original state." Manager Wang held his chin high, adopting a businesslike demeanor. I watched him silently, in my sense of danger. Above this man's head, besides the yellow representing irritability, was a swirling black aura representing greed. He wasn't here to resolve. The solution was to get benefits from the demolition. I reiterated expressionlessly, "Yes, it must be demolished." Manager Wang, thinking he had intimidated me, became even more arrogant. "Otherwise, we'd report it to the Urban Management Department for enforcement." I nodded, turned, and went back inside. Manager Wang, thinking I was scared, smiled smugly. "Young man, so what if you have money? You still have to obey." The next second, I came out, carrying no documents, but a black plastic bag. I casually tossed it at Manager Wang's feet. The bag was open, revealing 20 stacks of brand new red bills and 2 packs of hard-pack cigarettes. Here's 200,000 yuan, I said calmly. I've prepaid the 10-year property management fee. The rest, Manager Wang. Thank you for your trouble. Have a cup of tea. Manager Wang's expression froze. He stared intently at the money and cigarettes in the bag, swallowing hard. 10 years of property management fees. This villa only cost a little over 10,000 yuan a year. This kid threw out 200,000 yuan without batting an eye. This isn't right, Manager Wang said. My eyes, however, seemed glued to the bag. I saw through his hypocrisy. I stepped forward, leaned close to whispered in his ear. I like quiet and don't like being disturbed. My tone carried an undeniable coldness. Manager Wang, the soundproofing in this wall isn't very good. Sometimes I can hear things I shouldn't hear. Manager Wang's body stiffened abruptly, a cold sweat breaking out on his back. He understood. This was a warning, a stern reprimand. He quickly bent down, grabbed the plastic bag. His movements practiced as if he'd rehearsed it countless times. His official tone vanished instantly, replaced by an extremely obsequious smile. Oh, Mr. Gu, you're too kind, he said, bowing deeply, while holding the bag. I was just joking with you that we at the property management will absolutely support and cooperate fully with your privacy-conscious, high-quality residents. I pointed to the sturdy wall and gave a thumbs up. This isn't an illegal structure, it's art, a demonstration of security. I said, I'll go explain to the other residents right away and tell them not to make a fuss. Mr. Gu, rest assured, I said. If you need anything, just call me. I guarantee no one will bother you again. He finished speaking, holding the bag. He bowed and scraped as he retreated, afraid that staying even a second longer would be an offense. I watched his hasty retreating figure with icy eyes. Money in the bedroom was just worthless paper, but at least for now, it could solve many problems. Meanwhile, in a high-end apartment in downtown Yunqing, the atmosphere was oppressive. Tang Yao huddled in the corner of the sofa, his face pale, barely daring to breathe. Opposite him, Zhou Heng sat imposing, with 2 bodyguards in black standing behind him. I fiddled with a pure gold lighter in my hand, the cap clicking and closing, each sound striking Tang Yao's heart. Little Yao, Zhou Heng finally spoke. His voice gentle, but it made Tang Yao tremble even more. That investment you mentioned has been going on for almost a week. Why is there no progress? He looked up at Tang Yao, his gaze gone from its former infatuation, now filled with scrutiny and impatience. That 500,000 is no small amount. The interest is rising every day. Brother Heng, please wait a little longer. Tang Yao cried. I.e., he said, there will be a return soon, a big surprise. A big surprise. Zhou Heng sneered, snapping the lighter shut. I can't wait any longer. I want the money now. He stood and approached Tang Yao. Either return the 500,000 yuan to me now, with interest, or you'll have to pay me back in some other way. His gaze sweeping menacingly over Tang Yao's handsome face and body. Tang Yao was terrified, his whole body turning ice cold. He knew what kind of person Zhou Heng was. He had long heard of those shady businesses. Falling into his hands would be worse than death. No. Tang Yao shrank back in panic, his mind racing, searching for a lifeline. That's it, Gu Yi. It's all his fault. If it weren't for Gu Yi, how could he have ended up like this? A vicious thought grew wildly that it was intentional. All the money is with him. Tang Yao screamed. He lied to me. He lied to you. He took your money and didn't invest it instead. He went up mountain to buy things. Saw a large villa. Zhou Heng paused, narrowing his eyes. Tang Yao scrambled to the table, pulling out photos from his phone. They were photos taken by a private investigator. It showed his steel fortress under construction, this very place, Cloud Peak Villa, building A01. He'd poured all his money into it, turning it into a turtle shell. To convince Zhou Heng. He embellished the story, claiming the apocalypse was coming and he needed to turn it into a refuge. He was a madman. Brother Heng, all your money is with him. Go find him. He definitely has money. Zhou Heng stared at the extravagantly designed gray building in the photos, his eyes gleaming with greed. Could he really afford to spend so much money? The renovation. Description. That kid has more than 5 million. Doomsday shelter. Zhou Heng muttered these words, a cruel smile appearing on his face. He patted Tang Yao's face, forced neither light nor heavy. Very good. If what you said is true, I'll let you off this time. Zhou Heng stood up, waved to his bodyguards, and called his brothers. Zhou Heng put on his coat, his eyes fierce, and went to Yunding Mountain Villa pay a visit to our Mr. Gu, who was preparing for winter. Several black vans roared out of the underground garage, sped to Mountainside Villa. Night deepened. The black vans roared like beasts smelling blood, rushing up the winding mountain road of Yunding Mountain Villa, the screeching of brakes echoing. The tranquility of the villa area was shattered as the car door was flung open. A dozen burly men in black, wielding clubs, jumped out, their menacing aura palpable. Zhou Heng, leading the way, loosened his tie, his gaze coldly fixed on the gray steel fortress not far away. This is it, Tang Yao nodded, his face ashen, half pushed and half carried by 2 bodyguards. Yes, it's building A01. Zhou Heng snorted coldly and waved his hand to knock on the door. A bald, burly man immediately stepped forward and slammed his fist into the doorbell next to the intercom. The dull thud echoed in the night, brimming with provocation. Inside the villa, the dining room was brightly lit. I cut off a piece of sirloin steak and put it in my mouth. A huge screen on the wall in front of us displayed the surveillance footage from around the villa. One of the images was of the group of uninvited guests at the door. Zhou Heng's face looked particularly ferocious under the camera. Tang Yao sat behind us like a frightened quail. I ate slowly and leisurely, pouring myself half a glass of red wine. The people inside were yelling, "Open the door! Fuck your mother! If no open door, that will tear this door down." Zhou Heng pushed aside the burly man and leaned close to the camera. His fingers unconsciously adjusted his collar. "Old Gu, it's me." Zhou Heng paused, deliberately lowering his voice, which carried a slightly awkward familiarity. "Weary classmates, we're brothers. Open the door, I want to say a few words to you in person." Someone behind him spat impatiently and slammed the stick-on steps with a thud. Zhou Heng's eye twitched. He turned around, glared at the man, then turned back to the camera, his tone hardening slightly. "Don't make things difficult for me. You know I didn't come alone today." Picked up a napkin, wiped my mouth, and pressed the call button. My voice came through the loudspeaker at the door, calm and clear. "Inconvenient." Zhou Heng's expression stiffened for a moment, as if he hadn't expected me to be so decisive. The thugs behind him immediately cheered. "Damn, this kid's pretty arrogant. Brother Peng, stop talking nonsense and just ram the door." Zhou Heng's Adam's apple bobbed. His gaze darkened, and his voice, though laced with anger, still addressed him by his old title, Master Gu. "If you really want to do this, and you don't open the door, I'll lose face in front of them. If things get out of hand, no one can protect me." I took a sip of red wine and spoke slowly. "Investment is risky. You should understand that principle, right?" Zhou Heng was stunned, as if the word investment had struck a nerve. His eyes instantly turned colder. "That I'm not discussing that I invested 500,000, and I want to see the money now." My voice was mocking. "Money? Have you forgotten that we signed a closed-end fund project? What kind of bullshit fund is this?" "Master Gu, don't play word games with me. The project is in its closed period. If we withdraw our investment now, according to the contract, I don't have a penny," I said calmly. "Don't rush, just wait another week. The first phase of the project will be settled in a week. Your 500,000 will double." Zhou Heng's breathing visibly erratic, doubling his 500,000 into 1 million. The anger in his eyes was pushed aside by something even hotter, greed, and a hint of struggle against a precipice. "You fucking double it in a week, son-in-law? Do you think I'm stupid? Your choice, believe it. The door is right here. You can try to break it open. Or you can go back and come back in a week to collect your 1 million. Of course, if you act now, the contract will automatically be void and will be even." After saying that, I hung up the phone. In the surveillance footage, Zhou Heng's expression was uncertain. I could see from his expression that the temptation of 1 million was like a huge hook, firmly holding him. That he was clearly hesitant, yet reluctant to give up that profit. His eyes scanned back and forth between the door and the person, as if thinking, what if it's true? This kid spent so much money turning the villa into a tortoise shell. Maybe there really is a way to make a fortune. "Brother Heng, are you still going to break it open?" Zhou Heng's eyes scanned back and forth between closed door and Tang Yao's pale face. He needed an outlet for his anger and a way to back down. With a crisp slap, Zhou Heng retaliated by striking Tang Yao hard across the face. Tang Yao staggered, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth, his ears ringing. "You bitch, you dragged me into this mess. You making things difficult for my brothers." He blamed all his anger and hesitation in this woman, turning to his men and yelling, "What the hell are you looking at? Get out of here. Take him with you." Two thugs immediately stepped forward, grabbing Tang Yao on either side and dragging him towards the car like a sack of potatoes. Tang Yao staggered, trying to struggle, but was roughly shoved into a black minivan. The car door slammed shut. Zhou Heng's face darkened. He flicked his wrist, turned, and got into his car. Several minivans quickly turned around, engines roaring, and sped away. From the villa, empty, only blood foam whipped up by the wind and a string of messy footprints remained, quickly swallowed by the night. Inside the villa, I finished the last bite of my steak, put the plate in the dishwasher, turned off the monitor screen, and walked indifferently to the living room's floor-to-ceiling window, looking at the sickly purplish-red night sky outside. Everything was unfolding according to my script. Suddenly, a sharp, unpredictable pain pierced my brow. A sharp, stabbing pain originating from the depths of my soul. I had never felt such a strong reaction to danger perception since acquiring this ability. The warning came from all directions, from above, from below, as if the whole world would turn into a malevolent purgatory in the next second. Now, my pupils suddenly contracted. Just then, the television screen in the living room, which was playing financial news, suddenly flickered. The image abruptly cut off, and a series of urgent alarms sounded that a serious-looking male anchor appeared on the screen, urgently broadcasting a global breaking news. Report. The anchor's voice was hurried due to nervousness, and the script in front of him seemed to have just been received. According to monitoring by the National Space Science Center, a super-powerful X-28 class solar flare has occurred in the surface of the Sun, and the accompanying coronal mass ejection is hurtling towards Earth at an unprecedented speed. The television screen switched to a simulated animation taken by a space telescope, showing a giant fireball violently erupting from the surface of the Sun, carrying billions of tons of charged particles. A cataclysmic storm hurtled towards the blue planet. The news anchor's voice rang out again. Trembling uncontrollably, it was predicted that the high-energy particle stream would reach Earth in 12 hours, triggering a global supermagnetic storm. Experts predicted that all satellites in orbit would face paralysis, and that ground communication systems, power grids, and financial systems might experience prolonged, large-scale global outages. All citizens were urged to immediately, before the anchor could finish speaking. The television screen suddenly flickered, the image distorted, the sound vanished, and the screen turned into blinding static. A piercing crackling of electricity echoed through the empty villa. The global live news alert was cut off. I stood there, not even lifting an eyelid. I couldn't be bothered to look at that piece of junk TV. The excruciating pain from the danger perception between my brows was the most precise countdown. There were still 12 hours left. That was the time for the main peak. Disturbances at the front peak could strike first at any moment. True preparation's never done at the start of the countdown. That's called gambling with your life. I exhaled, feeling no tension whatsoever, but rather an eerie stillness. Time began. I turned and walked towards the underground. Fingerprint, iris scan, mechanical knob, double password. 3 doors opened, one after another. The heavy alloy doors closed behind me. With a reassuring thud, the lights in the underground warehouse came on. Rows of shelves stood like an army, neatly arranged, almost obsessive-compulsive. Rice, flour, oil, canned goods, freeze-dried and compressed biscuits, salt, sugar, seasonings, vitamins, water purification tablets, medicine, disposable gloves, spare filters, batteries, fuel, all categorized. The boxes, labeled with dates and numbers, weren't new. A week ago, my first sense of danger pricked me like a needle between my brows. Not intense, but enough to make me understand that the real disaster wasn't whether it would come, but when. From that day on, I started stockpiling in 3 layers. First, long-term survival. I didn't care about fancy items, just things that would keep me alive. High energy density, long shelf life, easy to store, and easy to distribute. These made up half the warehouse. Second, medium-term comfort. Frozen meats, ready-to-eat meals, coffee, tea, alcohol, snacks, seasonings, hot pot bases. These weren't necessities, but they made me feel alive. Third, short-term emotions. On the day of the apocalypse, I wouldn't care about having enough, but about enjoying myself. Crayfish, beer, steak, cheese, desserts. They were all neatly stacked in vacuum-sealed containers in the freezer. I opened one, and a blast of cold air hit me. The vacuum bags inside looked like transparent bricks. Bright red crayfish, thick steaks, and clearly defined cuts of meat, lying quietly and smiling. Outside, people would fight tooth and nail for the last bag of rice. But I only needed to do the final inventory and transfer. I took out the list, checked the quantity and expiration date of each item, divided them into sections for backup and replacement, and after confirming everything was correct, I moved my mind. Boxes of vacuum bags, freeze-dried products, canned goods, medicines, and water purification tablets seemed to be lifted up by an invisible hand and disappeared into the air, entering the treasure trove space that I in this space. Time stood still. Hot food wouldn't get cold, cold noodles wouldn't spoil, and medicines wouldn't expire. As long as I categorized them clearly, I could use them according to plan every day in the future. Finally, I put the short term. I put a portion of my food separately into the retrieval area. Tonight, I'm going to open one. Not because I don't have time to stock up, but because from now on, the outside world doesn't deserve me to struggle for food anymore. I closed the freezer, returned to monitoring room. Down the mountain, chaos had already broken out. The streets were increasingly congested with cars, and horns were blaring everywhere. People poured out of office buildings and homes, rushing like madmen towards supermarkets and gas stations. Panic had begun that I made myself a cup of hand-drip coffee, sat down on the leather sofa, and looked down at the main road down the mountain. The supermarket entrance was in complete chaos. People were pushing, shoving, yelling, and frantically grabbing supplies that a conflict broke out that a man grabbed the last rice bag. An early young man next to him kicked him to the ground. The young man snatched the bag of rice and ran away. The middle-aged man got up, his eyes bloodshot, picked up a brick, and chased after him, howling to die in another scene. A woman was surrounded and attacked over a few bottles of mineral water. Her cries and screams were ignored in the chaotic crowd. Violence and looting had even truly arrived. Before humanity crumbled did I watch quietly, my gaze like that of someone watching a dull black and white film, devoid of pity or sympathy, my heart calm. At 10 p.m. I completed the last check. The gates lock cylinder, power switch, fresh air filter, water pressure, backup fuel service, temperature control, and external sensor feedback were all normal. I went to main control room. Uncovered the transparent cover of the red button, pressed it with one finger, and an electric shock rang out. The 30-centimeter thick alloy gate outside the gate slowly closed with a loud bang. 16 lock cylinders, each as thick as a bowl, popped out and embedded themselves hard into the wall. Immediately afterwards, the explosion-proof roller shutters slammed down, sealing off all the windows. With a final muffled thud, the entire villa was completely shut out. No light could penetrate, and no sound could escape. It had become an isolated island. The indoor lighting automatically adjusted, and the fresh air system hummed softly. Returned to living room where the temperature was a constant 26 degrees Celsius. I was wearing a short-sleeved shirt and shorts, barefoot on the wool carpet. I took a vacuum-packed crayfish dish from the utensil area, tore open the seal, poured into pot, and heated it. The moment I lifted the lid, a spicy and savory aroma filled the entire room. I then took a can of ice-cold beer from the liquor cabinet, popped open the tab, and watched. The soothing background music of Breath of the Wild on big TV. By the increasingly, the eerie, purplish-red night sky felt like two completely different worlds. I picked up a glistening crayfish and popped it into my mouth. Spicy, savory, delicious, sip of ice-cold beer. Feeling completely refreshed. This truly was the last supper. Not because I couldn't buy any, but because from now on, the outside world would die, and I no longer needed it. I leaned back on the sofa, closed my eyes to rest, and enjoyed the last moments of peace before the apocalypse. The treasure trove was overflowing with supplies. The underground ecological park was planted with seeds. The reservoir was full of water, and the generator was ready to go. Everything was prepared. Just then, the stinging pain between my eyebrows reached its peak. I abruptly opened my eyes and looked at the screen. The purplish-red sky instantly turned black, deep and viscous, like a bottomless abyss. Extreme fear instantly enveloped everyone. The street fight stopped, and everyone looked up in terror at the sky. The next second, all the lights in the world went out instantly. As if someone had flipped a master switch, the dazzling sea of lights at the foot of the mountain vanished in an instant. Street lights, car lights, billboards, windows. All the light was gone. I in the monitoring room, except for the core server, displaying the outside world. The screen went completely black. Darkness descended. The villa's backup power activated. The lights flickered briefly, and then returned to normal. Instead, using terrifying darkness outside, I put down my beer can. The old era has ended. My era has just begun. I walked to the control panel. Dozens of monitoring screens, except for thermal cameras with own power, were all black. The electromagnetic pulse came faster and stronger than expected. This meant that 99% of the unprotected electronic devices in the city had been rendered useless in that instant. Cars, mobile phones, computers, the power grid. Civilization was paralyzed. I checked the energy monitoring screen. The diesel generator icon was lit up. Output was stable. Parameters were normal. The Ferrari Dragon blocked the pulse. The external sensors were shielded and surge isolated. The thermal imaging camera was also military-grade reinforced and independently powered, so it was still lit up. My fortress was fine. Suddenly, a new alarm popped up on the control panel. Abnormal external temperature. A string of red numbers on the screen plummeted. 25 degrees Celsius, 15 degrees Celsius, 5 degrees Celsius. I stared at the screen. This wasn't normal cooling, it wasn't a logical plunge. I switched to the remaining thermal imaging camera. The colors of the world under the lens were rapidly changing from yellow-green, representing normal temperature, to blue, then to deep blue. And finally, the entire screen was a frigid blue-black, 10 degrees Celsius. From 25 degrees Celsius in early summer to minus 10 degrees Celsius in the dead of winter. It only took 1 hour. And then, strange noises, denser and deeper than the rain, came from outside the villa. I turned up the microphone volume. The sound was like sand being splashed on a hot plate, making my teeth ache. It was the Bentley. The blizzard was hitting without warning. Visibility in the lens dropped to 0 outside. All that remained was a wildly churning white disaster. And this was just the beginning. On the highway below the mountain, a black minivan was lying in the middle of the road like a piece of scrap metal. Inside, Zhou Heng was yelling until his voice was hoarse. "Damn it, it hurts. You fucking move it." He frantically twisted the car key and pounded on the steering wheel. The dashboard was completely black and unresponsive. The car was totaled. Outside the window, it was pitch black. The phone was now just a brick, its light gone. A wave of fear washed over him. "Heng, I'm cold." Tang Yao, standing beside him, chattered, his voice trembling violently. The temperature inside the car had plummeted. Just moments ago, the air condition was on, making it warm and cozy. Now it felt like falling into an ice cave. "Shut up," Zhou Heng yelled irritably. His fingers were already frozen stiff. His expensive bespoke suit felt like a sheet of paper. "Head it out of the car to find shelter." Zhou Heng pushed open the car door. A gust of icy wind rushed in. Tang Yao screamed. The wind felt like knives scraping his face. Zhou Heng stood outside for less than 3 seconds before scrambling back inside. It was even colder outside. Wind and snow were fierce. We couldn't see the road. Going out would mean certain death. Heng I'm about to die. Tang Yao huddled in her seat, hugging her arms and trembling like a leaf. Her lips were frozen blue-purple. Zhou Heng saw the rage in her eyes. Her survival will suppress it. Without a way, both would die. He pulled Tang Yao over and held her tightly in his arms. The woman's body was cold, but at least she had some life force. Tang Yao didn't resist. Like grabbing a lifeline, she hugged him back. The two of them, separated by thin clothing, were like two desperate trapped beasts, rubbing against each other for their pitiful body temperature. The living room of the villa was warmly lit. The air was clean, and the temperature was constant. Outside the window, the wind and snow were raging. The world was collapsing in the darkness. I bit the last crayfish in the pot. I slowly swallowed, picked up my beer, took another sip, and smiled lightly. The blizzard was still falling. The snow was over a meter thick and still growing. Soon, the villa's first floor would be buried, and this place would become a completely isolated island in the snow. The coffee table vibrated slightly. It was an internal modified phone. I picked it up. The screen showed no service, 1 bar off signal. A fragmented data stream forced its way in. This was a remnant channel, a military emergency shortwave network combined with an underground wired relay, which was why it could still squeeze out this signal even in a complete paralysis. The signal frequency band was long yuan 01. The coordinates were encrypted, and the Yunqing Underground Number 7 official shelter. Warning was issued. The non-standard protocol access and identity recognition failed. Reverse tracking was initiated. The question was, who are you? I looked at the line of text, smiled, and didn't reply. I took out another modified phone, connected it with a data cable, and rapidly typed code on the virtual keyboard with my index finger. The screen flashed wildly. It received the signal and reversed the intrusion. A few seconds later, a line of text appeared on the other party's channel. Wasn't what I typed. It was a fake distress signal I simulated using a program sent from an unknown area. This was bait. After doing all this, I disconnected both phones and put them in airplane mode. In the dark jungle, the positions of hunter and prey had reversed. I grabbed my beer and chugged it. The game had only just begun.